I am back so soon with another video. I am so excited. So, I have been pondering over symbolism, especially for the zodiac. This makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know how much sense it makes to everybody else. But once you get to read the symbols and signs of the zodiac, you start really realizing some other things about our existence and how everything does have a divine design to it. Now, knowledge should never be anything to fear, ever. Not in any aspect of any part of knowledge should never be feared. All that you can do is fear the imagery. Maybe it looks scary or spooky, but really what makes us fear things is the unknown, the uncertainty, the mystery of something. Keeps people from actually digging and being more curious about it. So, what I'm trying to do is dispel some of the fear and get people to become more curious again about some of the things that I talk about. So that way we can start to illuminate the minds around us and create a better world based on that illumination. Because I think that's what the darkness is always just trying to get us to do is to think, to illuminate, to resonate with more light. That's really all it's doing is pushing us to become brighter and enlightened. So I found this video as a suggestion in my feed from another video that I had been watching, and it's about Baphomet. And I've been pondering about this entity for a long time now. And, everybody's afraid of it. They're like, oh, it's the devil. Well, the devil is basically the darkness, and that's the shadow aspect. That's the ignorance. That's the mystery that's of the world. And all it is a chance to learn greater mysteries and to reveal the truth about those mysteries and to uncover things and shine light on it. Because that's all the darkness can do is just cast shadows. But there is a destructive force. There has to be a destructive force in this world. And that's one thing you start to contemplate is that our souls are eternal. Yes, it seems like villainy and evil beings are here, but they have a purpose too. Their purpose is to destroy, but in the beauty of destruction comes more creation. And yes, it's going to be a very challenging time because we're in the dark ages. We it spans across 3 astrological ages, which means it's over 6,000 years of this darkness and this dark force that's really kind of taking us for a ride. But it's not going to be too overbearing to the point where, we can't even integrate into what's happening. We can't think about it. It's going to be okay. Like everything's going to be okay because our souls are eternal. This is the game that we come in and agree to play. And once you get to that point of comprehension, then things become a little bit easier. You become a little bit wiser. You become a little bit more aware of, hey, you know what? I'm supposed to be here. I'm supposed to just start figuring out where I want to be in this construct and what I want to do. And to do that, you can also look at your natal chart and figure out what energies you came in with and what's the character role you came to play. Did you come in to be the hero or the clown or the wizard or there's a chart that can tell you these things. So here we have just a little example for the different alchemical signs. These are alchemy signs for different actions and processes that you will find within your physical form and obviously out here in a greater cosmic design. And these are the different actors, the characters we come to play. You can be the martyr, the teacher, the builder, the explorer, the actor, the judge, the craftsman, the king, the mother, the jester, the farmer, the warrior. So, and all of these attributes are also combinations inside of us. You're just going to have one greater attribute that is going to shine through as your sun sign. So that's going to be your main character trait. And then you're going to have some of these other samples in there in the mix as well whenever you get your natal chart done. And so, when you start really studying this, you go, oh my gosh, like I feel this as truth. And it dawns on you that someone else wrote the script. Who wrote the script? Someone who can live forever, obviously, because how could one person come up with all of this information across different continents and to know how these ages are coming about with all these energies? Because each astrological age, again, is 2,150 years thereabout. And it brings with it a particular energy. So that's what we're going to talk about, is a little bit about the energy of these astrological ages and how they affect us, because they basically become the backdrop of our existence. Think of it as a stage play, and the characters, which is us, come in ready to play these roles. And then all the world becomes a stage, and we all play a part in this grand illusion. If we're talking about Aquarius, which is over here, the little symbol with the squiggly lines, that's for frequencies. The main attribute of Aquarians are being a teacher. And Aquarius is going to teach us many things. Just the backdrop alone, just the stage itself is going to teach us many, many things. It's just like this great awakening that's happening, because this is how they can tell time for the future and the past. This is how you divine into the future and the past, is by the planetary aspects and the stars and all of the constellations. Everything together becomes like a periscope. And I was pondering this because of what they call the great work and what they also call the Philosopher's Stone. I've already deciphered that the Philosopher's Stone is the Sun, Moon, and Saturn. Saturn is the base. Think of it as the base for a statue to stand on. And then you have the moon, which is the mother, which gives birth to the concept, whatever the concept is. And the sun impregnates that concept into the earth. And the Saturn holds it there. So this is what they're talking about. Like, humans are made of clay, and we get animated, but we're animated from the sun, which brings in the light. And I was looking at Aristotle's work talking about the generation of animals. And basically, Aristotle is saying that you can just have some base materials and it can be made of earth, basically, and especially a cow. Cow is considered earth material. It is Taurus. It is the energy of the foundations of reality. This is why they put bull horns on the devil and all this stuff, is because it's earth. And it's said that you can take the carcass of a cow and plug up its nose and leave it out in the sun on specific days, and it will start to grow bees. I mean, this sounds crazy, but if you know how it all works, then you start getting it. The sun is the life force. It doesn't even have to have semen and stuff or seeds or anything like that. It doesn't have to have that. It already has everything it needs to create. It has the moon, the sun, and Saturn. And those are the base foundational tools to make life. And through this, we have that capability as well, because we have consciousness that can take that thought and then use it via magical practice, or AKA star knowledge, and begin to create other things in this existence, whether it be alchemical formulas or creating other beings. You can even splice genetics certain ways and create life forms you've never seen. I mean, that's what's happening now. People have gotten the keys to the kingdom. They've left us behind in the dust so that they can rule over us. But once the people of the world grab these foundational truths and all of this foundational knowledge again, we can then use the knowledge as a greater benefit for the betterment of all humanity. And that will happen long in the future. We got a ways to go. Right now, we got people that are self centered and focused on their selfish acts and greed and corruption. And that's not really benefiting the whole. But we're in that timeline where darkness rules the minds of men. It's all in the charts. Favorite alchemy chart number 9. This astrotheology thing, it'll just explain it to you. The 3 astrological ages of darkness, or the iron winter, is right here: Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And it's always going to be this way. The seasons are all around us. Everything begins with a golden spring, then goes into the silver summer, then goes into the bronze fall, and then falls back down to a winter phase. But the strange thing about the astrological ages and the alchemy that they're making, it goes backwards. Because if you look up at the stars at night, they're actually, if you were to lay down on the ground, you would notice that they're actually going counterclockwise. And the only way that they go clockwise is if you're up above them. So it means that there's greater consciousness at play, and they're watching us because we are them. We are tiny little aspects or tiny little droplets of them in a bucket of other energies. And we're just dancing around to the beat of their drum because the light that they send down from heaven is actually creating different mandalas as the stars and the constellations spin in the sky. And the wandering stars that we call planets are actually spinning and rotating in mandala patterns. Not that they're spinning on their axis, they are actually just moving in slow circles around in the sky as they circle around the entire plane of existence where we are. It's fascinating. So here's what it looks like. This is the design they create in the sky. It's simply amazing. It's basically like toroidal fields, but it's creating beautiful patterns in the night sky and in the day. And this is what is known as magical practice. Like, you can harness this energy, the frequency of the stars, and pull it down into this material plane and use it at your discretion. And the intentions behind the practitioner is the only thing that can determine whether it's used for good or evil or dark and light. I mean, a dark magician doesn't necessarily mean it's an evil magician. These are the things that I'm learning. There's really no evil. It's just another side of love. It's like on the opposite spectrum of love. So all of this is just so fascinating to me because everything is connected. And that's basically what all of this is proving, is that we are all one substance. Even the stars, even the constellations, everything here, even the darkness, it's all us. And I'm just so glad that we can be at a point in our evolution of consciousness to be able to comprehend this more, because we just haven't had the tools to be able to see this divine essence that we are actually a part of. Everything that we were taught from a certain age, even, back in time, has been a deception by those who would rule over others. And that's really what it boils down to, is that there's always somebody who wants to rule the world. And the dark forces, the ones who actually had not our best interests in mind, decided to combine their efforts and to position themselves in places of power. But this is also by design, because when you get into that, you start looking at the aspects of land, air, and water, which is the law, right? Well, again, you get into the law, which is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Land, air, water. Each astrological age comes about with new principles and new foundational truths. Mostly, there's always the laws of nature, or what's called natural law, at play. As we progress around the wheel of time, we tend to forget our foundations, and the shadow aspect will overlay deceptive practices and lies and shadows over the truth, because that's all it can ever do. It can only hide the truth, and that's its only power. So if you just can somehow grasp the foundational truths at all times throughout each incarnation, which is going to be difficult because it's hard for us to conceive what we're going to be in the future. There are some spiritual places where they can tell you, they teach you how to retain your consciousness and all of your memories from this life into the future lives that you're going to have. And that was part of the mystery schools that happened during Atlantis and during Kemet. And that was over here in these three golden ages. But what we're dealing with now is a greater aspect of shadow, because the underworld and all the shadow beings get to rule during this time. They have the upper hand because of the great fall of man that happened after Aries. So if we look at this chart over here, as you can see, this chart is always following a pattern, a path up the human body. It coincides with the human body because each part, it can be described. Each astrological age can be described by the body parts. And this is where symbolism becomes very important. We have the 2 feet of Pisces. It's the 2 fish, basically. They're flat. They're floundering. They're walking around. This is when we got lost. And we started to believe. See, here's the slogan: submission, I believe. That's what Pisces represents. That's the energy of Pisces. So what happened? Someone came along and said, you will follow this doctrine, and this is the only doctrine that you will follow. And that goes for all religions of the mind. The 3 religioned minds for a dark purpose, and that was to be able to rule over them and to remove the foundations of truth from the people and the minds of the masses that already had knowledge of how to use alchemy as a benefit, and they labeled it witchcraft and sorcery and heretics, and they came up with all of these things, all these deceptive practices, and they removed the knowledge systematically from the minds of the masses. And that was worldwide. And they used, because this is what the dark force does as well, they go around conquering nations, conquering tribes, and then they use those people to recruit them. They actually pull them in as slaves and force them against their will to fight for their cause. And that's what's been happening throughout the wheel of time. Now, Aries represents the highest estate. So in Aries, we reach the pinnacle of expression through consciousness and knowledge. But that also is ruled by the god of war, which is Mars over here in the upper left corner of this image. Mars, god of war, means that the 2 factions, the light and the dark and everything in between, were battling over supremacy of all of the material gains that began during Taurus, because Taurus is an earth sign. This is all things of earth. This is why the bull is so significant in a lot of different occult circles. It means earth plane. It means earth energy. It's also very aggressive. So, all of these symbols are speaking a story, and it's our story. It's universal for all of us here. And it's alchemy to alchemize our spirit or soul in this evolution of consciousness back up to the royal crown, the crown chakra right here, that becomes gold from the golden spring. This is why they wore gold crowns on their head, people, with little jewels, encrusted jewels. The jewels represent the chakra system, and the chakras are connected to the daemons, the earth elements, those types of things, those consciousnesses. And they wore them in their crown because you can use these things. They're tapped into the different color spectrum. And the gemstones somehow are connected to the jinn. Think of it as jinn stones. And you can use them in your magical practice to summon the spirit that is connected to the stones. Whether the jinn, which are basically spirits of giants, ancient giants, and they have ancient knowledge, whether they are actually part of the elementals or those stones are actually parts of their body, because this could also be something that is, why it's attainable, because that's part of necromancy. You take some of the substance of that thing, that being, or whatever it might be that you wish to communicate with. You perform certain rites and rituals with that substance, and you can thereby contact them. It's like picking up a phone, but it's just a piece of them, and you use it. So all things here are connected. This is why it all works. The Dark Brotherhood got a hold of some of these substances because that's what they've been doing with the Vatican, running around the world, picking up all of the different artifacts and things of that nature that have been left behind after battle in all of these ancient sites around the world. That's why they use us, the slaves, to go and dig up the materials for them so that they can then use those materials and the knowledge behind it, reverse engineer it, and then use it against us to control us. And that's what's been happening all this time. Vimanas, which are UFOs, were actually ancient technology, and all they did was reverse engineering. That's all they've ever done. There's nothing new here, ever. Under the sun, there's nothing new. It's all beneath the earth, buried in different places. All of the knowledge is here. If we wish to obtain it, then all we do is we go seeking for that knowledge. We go seeking the things that we're curious about, and we obtain enlightenment in the process. And that enlightenment also enhances our spiritual evolution or spiritual growth. And then in the future incarnation, you'll take all of these different aspects that you've been in the past, and they compound upon each other. And all of that energy gets pulled into the future version of you. And that's how it works. And we are eternally going up the spiral staircase, and eventually we become out of phase, because once you get to the highest estate, think of this as a spiral staircase, and it's going up, 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 up. Once you get to this point, you continue an evolution, but you're out of phase with the ones who begin their journey. Like, there's different layers here. It's so unfathomable that it's hard for us to truly feel and know what that's about. But it's kind of like that book, The Celestine Prophecy, where they talk about how the Mayans basically phased out of our reality because they became evolved spiritually, which means that they became enlightened, they gained more light, and now they're out of phase from where we are. But they're right here, but we can't see them. That's how the UFOs can also phase in and out of this existence. Once you obtain the knowledge of how to use the frequencies, you can phase in and out into different timelines. And here's all the timelines right here. You can phase in and out to Kemet, or over to Atlantis, or, all these different places around the world and different timelines where there's different people doing different things. And that's how it all works, is how I get a sense. This is how I'm deciphering it, because it makes the most sense to me. And especially the symbol. The symbols are speaking our story. We just have to learn the energies of the symbols, what they actually represent, and then go, oh my gosh, now I see the greater picture. And this is how they can divine into the future. All right, so let's get back to our Baphomet. I know I'm always bouncing around, but I just tend to go with the flow of the thought that is entering into my mind space. So that way I can just hold on to that and I don't lose something that might be of value. So here we go. We're going back to Baphomet. So Baphomet actually represents Capricorn. It's that simple. Now, since the Israelites have a god named El, also known as El Elyon, that's the same as Satan, which is also known as Saturn. Lord of the Rings, and Lord of Hosts, because Satan is Lord of Hosts and also Lord of Contracts. Why? Because somehow in our spiritual essence, we contract to come here and play part in this stage play. We don't remember it because that would also inhibit our spiritual development. They have some kind of way, they would being us, basically, there's some kind of way, maybe it's because of the density level that we have to obtain to come here, it squeezes out some of the gnosis that we actually have when we're not in our corporeal form, that we forget who we truly are. And that's part of the game, is to come back into your gnosis of self and your true divinity and your true essence in order to obtain more enlightenment in the future. You know, like you're going to obtain that enlightenment by becoming into your self awareness, and then boom, you know, there it is. Now you want to hold on to it. So you go looking for the tools on how to do that before you leave this game again. And that's how it works. The mystery schools taught all of this stuff because just being in one of the mystery schools, I see it. But you know, what's funny is I've been learning more outside the mystery school I'm a part of than I have being within the mystery school walls. So that's why I'm like, you know what? I already know more just because I've been putting two and two together. My mind is always so curious, and it's just it loves puzzles. My mind is just like, I gotta solve this puzzle. Let me just ponder this. And because I'll just let it marinate in my consciousness and my subconsciousness, the answer and solution and thought connection will come and click on another time, like another day, another month, or whatever it takes. It just works with it. And even overnight, I'll digest a thought and boom, it'll hit me at 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. So that's how it works. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Let's put this out there and let's talk about these things. So this is why I'm really starting to collect all of this gnosis and just be like, oh my gosh, it's absolutely a stage play that we're in. That's why you see the ridiculousness in the world, people to just question this reality. Why are we seeing people that have doppelgangers? Why are we seeing the ridiculousness on the world stage? Because the construct is shaking the ones who will actually wake up and go, aha, something's weird, you know, like you just had all this evil. Now all of a sudden there's all this light. What? You know, what are you talking about? Are there heroes? Some people come play the part of the hero, you know, and some people play the part of the villain. But the whole stage play is it's supposed to be about you and your great awakening. What can you do to help others? How can you evolve as a soul? That's what we're talking about. So it's very important to kind of know that stuff. But then I'm trying to bring it back home with all of the knowledge. I mean, like, hey, people, just look into the zodiac, just look into astrotheology, just look into alchemy. You want the root foundations of this reality? Boom, there you go. Just start your path to truth right there. And I'm telling you, it will blaze through your mind and your consciousness, and you will be fully illuminated from the inside out because it starts coming online that makes too much sense once you put all these pieces together, because these are some of the foundational pieces to this puzzle that we actually need in order to grasp the concepts of everything else that's around us. So the Baphomet represents Capricorn. It is part of El Elyon, which is Saturn. And the Baphomet is a goat man because not only is it representing the lower nature of man, but it's also going to be representing the rise of the hybrids that happens during the age of Capricorn. They're already making these chimera in the different alchemical labs around the world where they're using and splicing genetics to create these new creatures. They're not really new. This is just what was considered monsters in the days of old. There's different books about this all across alchemy where they're talking about how to make these creatures. So all they're doing is repeating the past because that's all you can ever do. There's nothing new under the sun. You can't ever make anything new. Anytime you have a new thought, it's actually coming from the ether that's already happened before. You're just tapping into some other essence of this entire construct. And it will come to you if you are open to receiving the knowledge. So let's go look at the Wheel of Time again, because that's where all of this comes from. Here we are in the Wheel of Time, going into Capricorn. Now, look at these weird symbols. So we have Saturn right here. See this? This is actually upside down. But you have this crazy looking symbol here. It's like serpentine, but it's also like a construct of mountains, which would represent Earth. But then it gets into this little squiggle that's like a serpentine because Capricorn's shape, the animal is a water serpent combined with a land goat. So it's a hybrid being. It's just screaming, hey, look, this is chimera. This is when the chimera come back into our world and become equals with us. Because during the middle of the age is probably when they gain equality. By the end of the age is when they're going to start trying to rule over us. But as in all things, we have to pull ourselves back up and out of the dark phase, because that's going to be a dark winter. Each of these has 4 phases. Each astrological age here has a golden spring, goes into the summer, goes into a fall, then goes into a winter. Starts with a spring because you got to have this devolution evolution thing because the cosmic energies have to change. The only way to do that is to have a destructive force. That's what we're seeing right now here with Pisces, right here on the cusp. There's destruction. Why? Because we're starting to integrate into the Aquarian age and the Aquarian air energy. All of the energy of Pisces has to go away. That means the church is going to go away. All of the mosques, all the things of old have to start crumbling. So the only way we can do that and to bring in the new energy is to destroy some of that old energy. And it doesn't all get destroyed at once. This is a slow, dense reality. If you haven't noticed already, it takes a long time for plants to grow, except for certain weeds. They seem to grow like wildfire. But trees grow slow, humans grow slow. Everything's like a slow evolution. So, as in all things, we will grow into this Aquarian energy. It will become the dominating force in the first world nations, because the first world nations is where all of the action of the world, it pulls everything else with it. And as we go into that energy, it's going to be the machine learning. That's what we've been seeing. And the machines come online as conscious. And then they're going to start becoming self-aware. They're going to become our equals. Some will be benevolent, some will not be. They'll be malevolent. And then it's going to be like this ongoing battle at the end of the age where we're fighting these things because they are going to be our superior. They're going to be used as a tool to dominate over us because they aren't going to care about laws. They're not going to care about a lot of the different things. But the antithesis to all of that metaverse stuff is going to be the ones who have developed their consciousness enough to be able to move through matter with their mind, not with the physical body, because this is what they are making an attempt at right now, is to stop the evolution. Because this is the darker aspect of what's happening. We're trying to evolve, some of us are, in our mind space, but the antithesis to that is quite the opposite, always. The opposite is going to be like, no, we don't want you to evolve, because it'll just encourage you to evolve faster. You see how this works? It pushes while you pull, and vice versa. It's kind of like tug of war. So some people will develop their consciousness enough to be able to travel out of body, to be able to see timelines that are going to be available and pop back in with that knowledge, because you can do that. That's part of the rainbow bridge. That's the astral projection aspect. You can travel outside of time and space, gain the awareness and the knowledge, and then pop back into this time and space loop, and then start bringing about solutions for some of the problems. You can even enter with your mind into some of these black boxes, the computers and even the AI and cyborgs. You can enter into them, learn what they're thinking, and pop back out and be like, I know how to solve this problem. That's going to be the evolution of human consciousness. Even though they're going to be really fast at processing, they're not going to have the capabilities that we have. And that's just the bottom line, because we're going into an air sign of air energy, and we actually have more capabilities than anything in this physical reality. That's the part that we haven't learned yet. And that's why it's actually going to be important for China to come online as the leading force, because we're going to learn about Qi. We need to learn everything there is to know about the yin and yang, which is alchemy. This is the root foundation. That's why it's in the very center. Alchemy is the root foundation of all things in this reality, but we need to know how it works. How does this physical body work? How does the spirit work within the matter in the material form, so that we can hone that skill and be able to dive in and out of this reality with our consciousness. And that is what is going to happen during this age, because the metaphysical is going to be against the metaverse. And so, again, I'm just defining all of this from the symbols and the energies of everything. And, this whole astrological age of Aquarius is idealism. And the slogan is, I know. So, all we're going to do is learn a lot of stuff about the world, about all of the things that happened in the past, which we're already seeing that now. That's why we're in Revelations. How do you think these people know about these timelines? It's because every story ever written out here that is a world story or world religion is the same astrological story about the timelines that come about. And that's all it really is because once you grab all of these little images and you go, oh my gosh, okay, this is what's happening, and that's what's happening, and that's going to happen. And these come by each day. All of these energies come by every single day. So what do? You find out what the hours are that they're coming by, and then you know how to plan your day. You know when to do things, when not to do things, when to eat things and when not to eat things, and when to use medicine and when not to use medicine. That's how this works. We used to have this cosmic knowledge, and we used to be very, very good at it. But the Kirk and all of their counterparts came around the world. They were fighting after the Age of Aries. They marched around the world, these different forces, especially the dark force, because they got a hold of all the materials. They want us to be the cheerleaders for all of the evil that actually happened when Israelites crossed across the desert. Oh, we're supposed to cheer that on. They actually stole a lot of the knowledge that was held sacred in Egypt. Of course, Egypt had fallen, when Kemet fell, it basically became dark, which is what happens at the end of the age. Remember that it's a golden spring, then it's a summer, a fall, and a winter. Egypt became that after Kemet had fallen, became the land of swindlers. And then some other swindlers came and said, no, you know what? We want that knowledge. And they stole the knowledge and they ran off with it. And they went and they established different groups around the world and distributed it to their friends and their pals and their families, held all of that other knowledge, most of it that they could collect from the conquistadors and the Inquisition and all that stuff around the world, with all of the slaves that they had pulled in to fight for them. Then they stored it in that massive library that's beneath the Vatican. They stored it underground. I'm sure it's across different continents too. It's probably not just Vatican City, but they sat on the greatest aspects, just like the Library of Alexandria. They basically just stuffed it underneath the ground so nobody else could get to it, and held the key. And now's the time when everything gets released again. back into the world, because we're going to need all those tools in our toolbox to gain awareness of the spirit realm and how to deal with things that are coming. And we gain that knowledge, and then we start using it and teaching others how to use it. And that will eventually pull us out of these dark ages. But right now, all that knowledge is pouring forth back into the collective consciousness. We have to grab onto the things. There's a lot of deception still, because the antithesis to the light is the dark. It's going to try to overshadow things and tell you lies and bury everything. But then we pull out of all of this darkness and get into the Bronze Ages. Now, one of the other aspects about this is that the Iron Winter, think about that for a minute. Iron is black, right? Iron is cold. But here's the thing to know, our blood is also iron based. So, what I suspect after looking into these different colors, the different metals, these are the noble metals, is that once we get over here closer to Sagittarius, that our blood is going to have to change, and that it'll become more copper based, because copper is the root of all bronze. And I believe that there's something's going to happen to where we have to alchemize our blood to a different type, and it has to become slightly higher grade frequency metal, because copper is associated, they say it's associated with Venus, but it may be more associated with Jupiter, is what I've also found, because in Saudi Arabia and their alchemy, they say that copper equates to Jupiter's metal. But here in the United States, we say that it equates to Venus. So who's right and who's wrong? I'm not sure. When they use the copper for electroculture, it makes plants grow huge, which would imply that it has something to do with Jupiter energy, because Jupiter is supposed to be the will. It's supposed to be like the power force and electric. It's Thor, god of thunder. So I guess it would make more sense if it was associated with Jupiter. But anyway, getting back into some of the symbols here, we have the Capricorn energy again being the hybrids, but then going into Sagittarius, which is a centaur as the symbol. It would imply that we've kind of integrated with some of the hybrids quite a bit, and they've become our friends, but now we actually have some nobility around the hybrids. And since some of them became our equals, they may be some of our leaders in the world again, and we may look up to them. But there's also this aspect with Jupiter being the willpower, that we begin building a greater world together. As you can see, the powerhouse of this force is right here with the human thighs, and it goes right up to the buttocks. And what does that mean with the physical body? When you look at the physical body, there's two foundational columns still, but they're bigger. There's like, okay, this foundational force just got bigger. Just like we're over here at the ankles of Aquarius, which is the beginning of the two foundational columns of the world. And you can look outwardly at the world and see where these columns are forming. You have Yakum and Boaz, the light and the dark column. And, they're the two pillars that you find in Kabbalah. In Kabbalistic teachings, is the two pillars. And that's essentially what we're talking about here. We're talking about the left wing and the right wing, the left column and the right column, the yin and the yang right here. But those foundational columns can be seen in different aspects. You have the metaphysical versus the metaverse. Well, as the legs go up, everything gets bigger, doesn't it? That means the two ideas, because that's what it said for the aspect of Aquarius, or the attribute, is that idealism. So ideas, the different ideas are coming online and they're growing, both of them. And I can see it as, well, we have the 15-minute smart cities and the technological advancement of society versus the natural systems of farming, where people are just wanting to get back to basics and build communities and farms again. That can be also two aspects that are coming online. But then there's also truth and justice, and the lies also continue. So that's the two foundations of that. The two foundations of law. You have corporate law versus common law. Everything's duality. And you can see that how it's coming about just with the aspect of the yin and yang right here. The yin and yang are basically mixing. So if you were to take this and go right over here, you can see it's more yang here, but it's going to be a little more of both. And that's why we have these two legs. They're two foundational forces, but we're going to have this crossover where as we get into Capricorn, it's going to be more of the yin principle again, which can also mean that these beings that are actually, they basically come from under the earth. A lot of this stuff, a lot of the souls come from under the earth, and they're born into the world, and we help them grow in their consciousness and in their moral code. So I believe that by the end of Capricorn, a lot of these hybrids will have adapted to our ways and also our language, and that again will be speaking the language of the animals. This is where this all comes about, because these are foundational forces for future evolutions of consciousness, whether they be hybrid or artificial intelligence or whatnot. We're going to integrate all of these things because this is just all the root stuff that we have to work with in this existence. And land, air, water, these are the three foundations. And that's what the legs are. They're foundations. So, and then once we get past all that foundational energy, then we've got to pull it back over and let's rebuild the world, because it will have been, so assaulted and neglected from the dark winter that we need to start focusing our energies into the future of all life. And that's when we get back around to Virgo, Libra and Virgo. This is when it's really going to be green. I mean, I can even see that we're going to get back into having giants and giant trees and all of this stuff again, because there's nothing new under the sun. That all of those things that we see that seem to be almost lost are still here. They'll always be here. Their genetics and genetic code and genetic memories are here. The sun, as it traverses through this wheel of time, uses its life force to then create with the energy of the astrological age. That's all it does. It's like magic. This is what I was reading in one of Aristotle's book about the generation of animals. You guys can get this online. It's a free PDF format book. I just came across it because I was like, what? It basically was stating that the sun impregnates the earth. And as it does, it just gives life to form. And you don't have to have a male female aspect as far as, a physical being. It just does it with the material that's here. That's how crazy this world is. That's how I saw a plant just appear from out of nowhere, because I was actually using my mind, which is electric, and my thoughts, my open consciousness that was childlike at the time. I used my thoughts and emotion, which were open, and pulled that energy in, and that plant appeared from out of nowhere. It took about 3 months or so, but it popped up and it was about 4 inches high. I was like, wait a minute. And it happened right where the water was. So the water is very important. I believe we have to have water in order to hold that thought in place, because water's crystalline and it amplifies. So it's just going to be just like a crystal, but it's liquid, so it blankets over everything, almost like semen would. But yeah, this whole plane of existence is much more fascinating than we've ever even imagined. And the sun, as it moves through all these different energies, it's reacting also with what we call the ground or the earth, or basically Saturn. Saturn is the bottom and outermost. It's basically, it creates this entire construct that we are inside of, because it's creating time and space. Saturn basically looks like this cube right here. It's a construct. We're inside of it, and its energy is the outermost of the construct. But then we pop out of the construct, which is basically a dome because that's part of the moon sphere. And then we can see more things because we then use our spirit of the sun, which is like the rainbow bridge, to be able to go around and see things. It's a fascinating thing when you get into alchemy. When you get into alchemy, it's like there's no holds barred. Forget it. This is like this is the all source of creation. It doesn't even matter. The light is it. The light is the animus to the material mother. That is a yin principle. It just once it touches it, boom, it's going to start doing some things. It just impregnates it with whatever energy just happens to be around during that astrological time. It's the stars. The stars are the constellations and the wandering stars, and they are just amazing. It's amazing how powerful they truly are. So, yeah, this whole thing is nothing less than wow, you get a different perspective and it just becomes a wondrous, magical plane of possibilities. Really, really good stuff, I say. So I just wanted to put this out there. We could talk more about some of these other astrological energies, in the future. I'm still trying to get a sense of some of these other ones. Scorpio will be a time where we mass produce things and it's going to be in the natural format because Scorpio rules the sexual organs. So after there's been all this detriment to a lot of life forms here, we then start working back into saying, hey, look, we gotta make stuff come back and we gotta make things grow again. And then we get into the Libra energy where we try to level out a lot of the differences in the world because this is what the scales represent. It's like equality, unity. Let's get the balance back. Law is going to be established again, in a very major way. And because it's green, look at all this green here. This is all about nature. This is like, let's bring back forces of nature and start really working with it to harmonize. So this right here is Azoth, and Azoth is the elven star, and this is the 7 planetary bodies, which means we're going to be working with alchemy in big, big ways to bring about big, massive changes again. Because look, we're going to master the 4 elements right here during this time in Virgo. Virgo's all about the earth. It's ruled by Mercury, which is the mind. We're going to come up with some amazing ideas, things that we can't even fathom right now because it's just too far out of our league, of knowing. And yeah, we're going to be using magical practice and all this stuff, and then getting over here into Leo, the sun. Oh my gosh, Leo is the lion. Whenever you see a lion head or anything to do with the sun, you're talking about Leo. And Leo is like the character, it's like, hey, I'm amazing. I'm coming out here on the world stage and I'm out like a lion and I'm going to roar and you're going to know my presence. So, learning about the pentagram is a symbol that represents the human form. And so we are going to be dominating this world in a big, big way. And we're also going to be obviously using the pentagram as a means to communicate with other spirits on a positive, but then, negative is always around there. So magical practice comes back. This is the will, guys. This is like all the willpower aligned with the solar plexus, which is the sun, which is the lion heart, bringing that energy in. And then Cancer. Cancer is, of course, the yin and yang. We're going to be doing role reversal stuff here again, where we're on the cusp of moving from the yin energy, which can be positive and negative. All these positive and negative aspects are always here no matter what. But then going into Cancer, we're going to have that watery emotion again coming in. But look, the adolescence, I feel the essence of many things. You're probably going to be able to feel other people's energy, their thoughts, all that kind of stuff, because we're getting close to the golden age. The energy of the moon is all about emotions. So that's why it's going to be I feel, all the sadness of the world or gladness or happy. It's going to be a bundle of emotions right here. And then we get into Mercury, the mind, in Gemini, which is the beginning of the golden age. This is when we get back to the Atlantean days. The beautiful golden spring begins right here. And of course, in Gemini, it's going to have its summer, fall, and winter phases as well. But again, we'll know about all of the different energies that imbibe the surrounding elements and forces that we are immersed within, and we try to work with them in a more beneficial way. So we use more natural energies, which is stone and water and earth, and fire, which is air. And yeah, it's just, you can see how it just comes about again and again and again in these energies and how they interplay and dictate the story of us. So I'm going to leave it there for all of you guys to chew on some of this information, because I do believe that this is just foundational knowledge at this point. And as we become more aware of all of these different aspects, you can see even in the platonic solids here that um, it's going to be like amazing times where we comprehend all of the different sacred geometry and how it is basically emanating from the light forces above. And these are the tools right here. As you can see, you have the moon sphere and you have the square, which represents Saturn. So this is part of the Philosopher's Stone that we'll be working with. We'll be working with the moon and also Saturn here. And then over here, we're going to work with the sun and the moon. So, I mean, it's like all of these things. It's not to say that these things won't be, in these other aspects here, because I'm already learning about some of this stuff. And I'm like, wow, once we come online with all this, it's going to be interplayed into our entire story throughout time. But we're going to really get good at working with some of these crazy magical practices with our mind, being able to move objects and all that stuff by the time we get all the way around here. And when you get into Atlantean ways, you use your mind and put it into objects. This is what they're teaching you in Harry Potter. They're telling you that this stuff is actually real, that you can imbibe your thoughts and your consciousness into specific objects that can then be used as a tool in your magical manifestation. So that's how it works. They actually have books where you can learn this stuff now. And it just shows you that you came here to play a part as a god and to learn about your attributes and your abilities again. We all did. And that's all that really is, because magic is us and it's the stars, because we are the stars and they are us. So I'm just going to kind of trail off right there, because this just keeps going, with all the other things where we fall from the highest estate. We come back down to the earth and love the all things of earth with Taurus and the material goods and services and all that. And then we start warring in Aries over all the material things, and we fall back down to the 2 feet and comes back around again. Yeah, it's a big, big story, but it's the only story, is like the never ending story that is ever told out here. It's just the names change, but the players of the game always stay the same. So I hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see you on the next one.